Welcome, everybody. Thank you very much for coming to this evening's Kaleidoscope event. It's a series that we put on in Bay Path that's to foster openness, curiosity, and dialogue about issues, concerns, and knowledge in our community and our nation and around the world. My name's Brianna Sittler. I'm the Director of Special Programs. And again, thank you for being here. I want to give you a couple of little house cleaning things. If you have an electronic device, please put it on vibe or silent. If you need restrooms, they're out these two doors, back here, down the stairs, and to that corner. If you're a student who's here for credit, there are places to sign in the back. You can do it now or later. We have evaluations. I'd love your feedback at the end of the night. It helps me get this type of caliber of speaker, and I value what you say. I want to announce that tonight's event is made possible by Bay Path College Kaleidoscope and People's Bank. The flow of this evening is that I will give a brief introduction about Doug Brega, our guest. I will introduce our president, Carol Leary, who will give a personal introduction about him. He will give his presentation and speak to you. He'll have question and answer, and then he will be doing signings down here at the end, so we'd ask you to line up from the bookstore down. We do have prints and books and catalogs for sale. With that, I'd like to say that I'd like to introduce our speaker, Doug Brega. Much of Doug's work captures life in New England, particularly its quintessential architecture. His talents with watercolor and dry brush medium showcase a deep understanding of light and shadow and reflect a longing for the classic New England look, which you'll see here tonight. He studied at Paler School of Art in New Haven, Connecticut, under Trompe-l'oeil artist Ken Davies. Early in his schooling, he chose to work with watercolor. He has two significant works held at the Michelle and Donald D'Amour Museum of Fine Arts in Springfield. He also has pieces all around the world in many different museums and collections, including Kansas City banker Crosby Kemper at the Kemper Museum of Contemporary Art and Design in Kansas City, and the Albrecht Kemper Museum of Art. Between Doug and his twin brother David, who paints in oils, they've created artwork for over 11 Yankee magazine covers. You'll see one or two here. Doug also holds an honorary doctorate letter from Bay Path College. After he speaks again, there'll be Q&A, signings, and you can purchase things at the end. With pleasure, I'd like to welcome Dr. Leary onto the stage to introduce you with a personal flair for Doug.
Good evening, everyone. It's great to see so many faces from the community and from the Bay Path community. And we have to give a round of applause to Brianna Sittler because for the entire year, and this is the end of her academic year, so to speak, she has put on some wonderful kaleidoscope presentations with speakers and artists and authors. So let's give a round of applause to Brianna Sittler. Thank you so much, Brianna. Well, before I begin my personal reflections about Doug, know that people have come. I just was introduced to someone who is in an art program in New Jersey, and she drove here when she found out that Doug was going to be here tonight, and so I hope I can introduce the two of them because she is certainly somebody who admires his work. And we even have my brother-in-law and sister-in-law from Buffalo, New York, who came particularly for this program as well. So I think not only the Longmeadow, Springfield area, but we have people far and wide to hear Doug Brega. And I wanted to give my own personal reflections because Noel and I not only admire and do own an original piece of Doug Brega and one of his signed prints, but we have become very good friends. And I thought it would be important for you to know how we met Doug Brega and why we truly believe he is one of America's foremost artists today. So you are very fortunate to be here tonight to hear him give his story of the stories behind his art. Noel and I went to the Springfield Library and Museums, and it has to be almost 10 years ago, and there was a show there by Doug and his brother, and it was called Oil and Water. And we did not know anything about the Brega brothers at all. But we walked into the galleries, and we went from painting to painting. And I must tell you, I turned to Noel, and we have been to museums all over the world. If there's one thing I received from my college education and my art history class of 1 year, it's my love of art, and Noel has that same love. And we never go to a major city in the world without going to a museum. So as we are passing through the galleries at the Springfield Museum, I turned to Noel and I said, Doug Brega is extraordinary. And I said, we need to know more about this man. And I think for those of you who know me, I definitely take every opportunity to meet somebody very special. So at the end of the program, I walked up to Doug and his brother, and Noel and I said to both of them, you are extraordinary artists, and we are just so fortunate that we found out about this showing and now have seen your work. And he was very polite, and he signed my oil and water book right across his picture. And I took that back, and I went to the next meeting of the Board of Trustees at Bay Path College. And I didn't know at the time, but many of my trustees also had Doug's work in their collections. And I said, these two artists are truly some of America's foremost artists, and I think we should give them the highest honor that Bay Path can bestow, which is an honorary degree of humane letters. We only do this for individuals who have in their lifetime achieved significance with their work or their contributions to society. There was not a doubt in anyone's mind that Doug and his brother Dave deserved to receive honorary degrees. So the next time I saw Doug, I stood on the stage in front of Deepwood Hall, and we put the hoods over the two gentlemen. And from that point on, a friendship began. And we have had the opportunity to watch Doug at work around our home in Maine, taking pictures, learning from him. Noel has pulled up his hobby of his college years, photography, and certainly asks for Doug's advice. I even recruited his two daughters to teach at Bay Path College as adjunct faculty members. And ironically, when I took Doug downstairs tonight, Joanna was teaching there with her students, and they all would rather be here than in their classroom. I'm sorry, Joanna. But we have recruited these bright, talented women to join us, and there's a great gene pool there in the Brega family. So with that background and the personal reflections, I want you to know that we are thrilled that Doug is with us tonight and that he will share with you the ways that he looks at the world, the pictures that he takes that really come to life through the stories behind the art. Please join me in welcoming Douglas Brega.
Thank you. You probably hear me. Take a little off today. Okay, well, thank you, Carol, and thank you, Brianna, wherever you went. I appreciate those kind words. I hope I live up to them. Let's see. Carol gave a little bit of a background where I started and how I started, but I might just do a little bit more real quickly. When I was 6 years old, my parents. Now, some of you may know this. I see a lot of people that I know in here tonight, so bear with me. But it wasn't my parents. It was my grandfather gave my brothers and I pads with our names printed on them. And we began to draw. at that age, 6 years old. Very complicated, like drawing with a lot of feeling. We drew Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck and Goofy. But that was the start, and we always had an interest in drawing. And if you skip all the way to college, Dave and I decided to go to this art school, Payer School of Art, where we both took up advertising and design. As a matter of fact, I graduated in advertising and design, and my first job was in 1970 at Rexel Plastics in Ludlow. And it was my last job 40 years ago. I haven't been able to find work since. It's tough out there. And so anyway, I went to the college, graduated in advertising and design, but a couple years out of school, I decided to study the works of Andrew Wyeth, Winslow Homer, and Thomas Eakins. And I didn't necessarily study their paintings or their technique. I tried to study their lives. How do you become an artist and make money? If you're painting all week, who's paying the bills? And I was fortunate enough to have good friends. They sponsored me for a year out on Martha's Vineyard. $7,500 they gave, $150 a week. I went out there and just painted, and that got my foot in the door at a small art guild in New Canaan, where I had my first show. We sold $3,000 worth of paintings. Some of the paintings were like $450, and the place was going crazy. They said, "We don't sell any paintings off these walls. This is unbelievable. $3,000, unbelievable." And as a matter of fact, there was a painting, somebody told me to put $600 on it, and I said, nobody's going to pay $600. And that was the first one to sell. But anyway, for the next 10, 12 years, I painted and just paid the bills, had kids, and I had a couple of sponsors, a couple of patrons that would buy paintings for $800 or $500 or $1,200. And then I had an opportunity to have my first one-man show in New York on Madison Avenue. And this is the big time. This is a dream. And the gallery had years and years of goodwill and clients, big collections, and it sold out. He said he was going to put all the paintings around $10,000, and I thought, well, we're not going to sell any of these because they had been only about $1,000 average. And so it was a big success. That was in 1987, and pretty much the rest of the years, the rest of the story is that it's been really good. I've been very fortunate to be able to make a living and to be able to get the kind of money, which surprises me, for the paintings and in the collections that they're in. Hearst Corporation in New York City owns 22 of my paintings. They have a huge collection. There's a big collector, one of the top 200 collectors in the world, Richard Manoogian. He owns Masco Corporation, and just one of the companies that they own is Delta Faucets. He owns $600 million in art, and he's got about 8 of my paintings. He buys with money out of his side pocket. And Crosby Kemper, who Brianna mentioned, he owns 35 paintings. A lot of the wealthy people, if they like your work, they really sometimes like to hoard it. And it's okay with me. So I'm here to talk about the people that I paint. And there's some people out there that they ask, why would anybody buy a painting of a person that they don't know? And it seems to connect. The people that like the people paintings, they connect with the character, with the person. It reminds them of somebody. they get some sort of a feeling, their sister, their grandfather, their father, or whoever. And there are two different kinds of collectors or clients. There are people that like my architectural landscapes, and then people that, there's a woman that told me once, I love living with your people. And that's the greatest compliment, because what I'm trying to get is trying to bring out the character of the people that I paint and get somebody to be moved by it. And that show that I had in New York, the first show, one of the paintings that he looked at to see if he wanted to do a show was of an Irishman. I don't think if he made the slideshow, but we had to cut him. Anyway, he saw the painting, and his first remarks was, he's wonderful. He didn't say that's a great painting, look at the technique, he did that later, but he connected with the actual person, and that's really what I'm trying to accomplish here. So, I'll start with an old farmer that I met a long time ago, and from Somers, Connecticut. His name is Emerson Davis, and he lives up in an old farm that was, there's a building that you'll see that, as a matter of fact, we can maybe start the show. This is the Greystone Farm up in Somers, Connecticut, built in 1846. The land was given to the Davis family by some politicians in Boston for something they did in the war. And in 1846, that's a long time. And I even did a painting of it, and this is the one architectural landscape that you'll see. The rest are going to be just regular people. But I used to drive by here, and I loved the place. And then I had some of my paintings in a flea market in Somers, Connecticut for a couple $100 maybe. I had a painting of this barn, and a gentleman came up to me with a cane, and he said, did you paint that? And I said, yes. And he said, well, you painted every single broken window in my barn. There you go. So we met. He said, come up anytime. Come on up and take pictures of the barn. You're welcome to come up. And so I did. And I went up there one time, and I went around the barn. The land is beautiful. And I started to talk to him afterwards in his barn. And he just, after you talk to him for a half an hour, he just had this kind of character that I started to warm up to. I loved his coat, his cane, even his glasses and that red hat. And he was a little bit leery when I said, would you like to pose? He said, well, not in this jacket, it's ripped. But this is the character that I liked, and so I took some pictures of him, and I kept. He kept on saying to me, you're wasting your film. I can't believe you're taking the pictures. I said, no, just wait, you'll see. And he said, I got better coats in the house, and he was very kind of self-conscious about it. Well, I went around and took pictures of him around the. Not of him, around the barn, and I came back around the front of the barn, and he came out in this sort of newer coat, and he had a tie on with the flannel shirt. I had him take it off, and I'll take your picture, okay? And so anyway, he's just a very nice man, and so I did my first painting of Emerson Davis. And this is an oil painting, which I'm mostly into watercolors now, but this is in the 70s. And it's kind of old. But it's just that stone behind him. It shows this sort of strength. And this guy, even with the cane, he had a frozen hip. So he couldn't, when he sat in a car, his leg stayed straight. He'd put it in and it would stay straight, his left leg. And Anyway, I sent this into Yankee Magazine with a couple of other paintings, and they decided to use that as their cover. And so, am I in the way for you people? So, anyway, there's a little blurb inside. He started to get mail. It said, Emerson lives at home alone with his dog, Princess. He got a ton of mail. The dog got mail. He said it was getting so I was looking forward to going to the mailbox every day. But there was this little dog, I forgot the name of it, actually talking to Princess, his dog. It was a letter like that. But it was from an older woman. And it's amazing, you know. And this is a national magazine, goes to all 50 states. That would include Hawaii. And so, if you didn't know. Anyway, he got a lot of notoriety, and he loved it. Now, he operated a peach orchard up in the fields. And I would go out there, and he'd be up there doing his pruning during the year. And one time, not this time of year, but when the peaches were ripe, he was picking them. And I went out there, and I was talking to him. And he's up there picking them and collecting them. And he said, try one. And I said, where? And he said, on the ground. And I said, on the ground? Yeah, geez, okay. Don't you have to wash it or anything? He said, I just ate one, and I'm still standing. So anyway, I took a bite, and you can't stand up straight. He was pretty famous for his peaches. But here he is pruning, and I took some pictures of him pruning, and I decided to do a painting of him while he was pruning. And this would be it here. And the painting wasn't exactly like this. And I finished it, and I brought it to him. Here, you look at that. I'm going to go out and take some pictures, Emerson. So I came back in about an hour or something. He said, well, I like the painting, but there's just one thing. And he said, anybody that knows anything about pruning will think of me as a fool because you've got too many branches cut off. It's looking like I just pruned it too much. So I said, okay, well, maybe I should add some branches. And he took a stick, like a crooked stick, and he kind of held it up against the painting and sort of, you could put one right there and put another one right there. So this is a collaboration. Guess what? Yankee Magazine liked it too. And he signed this. So we signed a bunch of them because he became pretty famous in his town and very much adored. Anyway, quickly, I was walking around the barn, decided to do a painting of the window there. This is another oil painting. And I brought it to him, and he's chopping wood right here. And I showed him the painting. What do you think, Emerson? The window. And he said, you should have had me fix the window before you painted. This is a beautiful shape. It's beautiful. It's awesome the way it is. He called me once. And he said, Doug, I'm thinking about replacing the window on the other side of the barn. Is it okay? Do you need to paint it again or something? Anyway, I'd see him around on his tractor. There he is. He's sort of sitting funny because one of his legs is hanging. It's straight because of the hip. And I did a painting. And this painting I did for the show in New York. And this is one of my favorite paintings. I love this. This is what it's all about. And everybody, or not everybody, a lot of people, they talk about how it reminds them of their grandfather or father. America, you know, the farmer, the barn, the birds, and this hat that's frayed at the top. One day I came into his house and he had a brand new hat. Bummer. He said, the old one's right over there. You want it? I should have brought it tonight. I have it. It's in my house, and I keep it like in a plastic bag. So anyway, that is Emerson Davis. I think that's the last of him, and we're going to move on to the tomato lady. Camilla Denault is her name. And she had a tomato stand, a vegetable stand on Westwood Avenue, and maybe some of you knew that. And I would go by and I'd see her. Well, wait a second. I'm sorry. This picture was in Yankee magazine because he got married. He was 75 years old, and he married a young gal of 59 years old. And would you believe he outlived her? She died about 15 years later. They promised each other 20 years. But she died, and she had cancer. That was sad. He lived to a week before he was 100. And one of the times I went up there, he was 98, maybe, 99. And he's looking at me, and he's kind of frustrated. And he says, the face, I know the face. I just can't. And I said, look on the walls, Emerson. Because he has a lot of paintings, and he owned the first one that I had painted. And he saw, oh, that's right, yeah. So he knew who I was, finally. But anyway, he got married right at his house, and there's his little wedding. There he is. There's the pastor. Oh, this is kind of like, it's in the country, and these people, they're very nice people, but they're from the country. So anyway, the tomato lady, back to Camilla. This was on Westwood Avenue, and she had her vegetable stand. I'd go there, buy a big bag of tomatoes, 60 cents. Are you kidding? I gave her 65 cents. No, I felt bad. I'd give her $1 or something. It's amazing how hard she worked. And she had the hands. You're going to see the hands here in a minute. Well, this is a different time of year. But she looked as if, and this is in no way offensive. I don't want to be offensive to her, but she looked as though she got up out of the earth every morning, as opposed to out of bed, because she was so. And it took about 1.5 years for me to get her to pose. She said the first time I asked, I told her, all you got to do is sit for photographs for 20 minutes. She'd say, well, after the harvest. And then after the harvest, she said, well, how about next spring? So she kept putting me off. My father also went by there every day, and she knew who he was because he was a customer, but she didn't know we were father and son. And so one day she said, I'll be happy to pose for you. I didn't know that was your father. And he said to her, why won't you let my son paint you? So he helped me out there. But what she did, she said, we'll meet you there Friday at noon. And I showed up, and here she is, brand new clothes and hair done. Wow. But I did a painting of it anyway and kind of fudged it a little bit to make her look a little bit. And this is in the collection of Richard Manoogian, which is in Detroit, and I told you about him. And every painting I did of Camilla sold right away. These are those chairs that they don't really have a back, and they kind of rock back, or Anyway, so I did a painting. This painting here, believe it or not, I had a nightmare one night. Sometimes it's a little scary, but the president of Hearst Corporation loved this painting. He bought the painting, and actually I brought it to this gallery in Stamford, Connecticut, and the gallery owner said, we can't sell people paintings unless your name is Wyeth. So, we'll see what happens. We'll put it on the wall. Well, 2 weeks later, he said, I've never had more reaction over a painting in the history of this gallery, the tomato lady. And this is with the permed hair and the new blouse, but I tried to make it a little more. But there's an awful lot of character there. The president, Gilbert Maurer is his name. Kathy Black is now taking his place. And he said that Gil Maurer said that the face is amazing, Doug, and the hair. But what I love about this painting is how you got the arms that are so, like, they've got a lot of strength to them, but they're sort of heavy. And he was trying to pronounce cellulite or something. That cellulite that you get. But anyway, she was wonderful. And she did agree to pose with her apron. She said, make it on a Thursday because I do the wash on Thursdays. But I didn't. I wanted to make it when she's kind of a little more rough. And there she is with her tomatoes, and I got kind of a close-up of her hand. I mean, this is amazing. That a woman, that's a lot of tomato picking, vegetable picking, and dig it in the earth, and trying to dig out of the earth when she got up. Anyway, and here's the painting that I did in the collection of Thomas and Robin Wheeler, the former CEO at Mass Mutual many years ago. And now we'll move on. How am I doing for time? In Maine, this is my younger brother. It's really me, back in the 80s, early 80s. And this is a gentleman called Walter Anderson. And he was a popular guy that posed for artists up in Maine, one of them being Andrew Wyeth. And actually, one of my teachers from college painted him a lot. So I saw him walking. I didn't know him. I saw him walking on a very narrow street, and I stopped and got out of my car, and I said, "Are you Walter Anderson?" He said, "Yeah, hi, how you doing?" Very friendly, and it looked like a painting walking. And I told him about myself, and he said, come on up, I'm staying at this house. We'll have a hot toddy or something. And we got in the kitchen, we talked about Andrew Wyeth, and I mentioned a catalog I had in my car, and I asked him if he would sign it for me where his picture was in this Andrew Wyeth catalog. He got a little annoyed. He said, "Well, I don't sign anything. Andy told me not to sign anything. You can take my picture. Come on, let's go outside." So I went outside, and I was feeling like, not good. And I'm taking his picture, and he's just posing. He said, "They give me something for posing up at the school." And I said, "Oh, you want? I could give you some money." And he said, "No. You got any liquor in your car?" "Yeah, I got a case of it." No, I didn't have any. Anyway, I said, "No, I'm sorry, but I'll give you some. I'll give you some money." Anyway, I got in my car. We were done. I still felt bad because I looked as if I was after something when I asked for a signature. People would maybe get a signature and sell the catalog. Anyway, that's not what I was after. I drove 40 miles to Van Dyke Corner. I went up to Rockland first. They said it's a holiday, Veterans Day or something. Van Dyke Corner, you can get some Jim Beam. I drove up there. That's 40 miles. Drove 40 miles back. It's dark now. Went to the house. Said, "Hey, Walter, I got some Jim Beam." He said, "Come on in. I'll fix you a hot toddy. Get that catalog. I'll sign it for you." This was a happy guy. And we had some more chit-chat. I never tasted a hot toddy. Don't know what it is, but he's cooking it on the thing. And we became good friends. We went out to Eagle Island. This is Eagle Island. We hired some kids out on a boat. And he's clams. I met Andrew Wyeth up there. He came into this little shed, and the kids said, "We're going clamming." And Andy said, "Will you get me a bushel?" Which is, it's a big bushel, and they get $12. And they bend over, and they dig and dig and dig and dig. And here's a painting of him out at Eagle Island. And you don't get much more character in somebody than this. I mean, that beard and the hat and just his weathered, salt air weathered face. He's like about 30 years old. No. He's actually only 60 here, like 61 or 62. And but he had put a lot of years in. Now, through the years, I'd go up again and I'd hang out with him and take his picture. He had a change of shirt. Here he's looking a little rough, but he's got his passive. One time I bought him a 6-pack of beer, and the next day I pick him up again, and I said, "You want to get here? I'll give you some money. You can get some more beer." So, "Oh no! I got enough beer, and when I run out of that, I'll get some more money." So he wasn't even all that crazy. But this is another painting of him that just you can't miss. Every painting that I did of him just would sell very quickly, and of course the shirt has got a lot of character to it, and well, so does he. He was a nice kind of warm gentleman. This is my dog. It's not even a painting. My dog was in love with my cat. And one day we were watching the Super Bowl, and why do I have these pictures up here, right? Well, Walter and the dog. I love the dog, and I wanted to do a painting of the dog. I used to hike I still do. I hike up in Munson on Peaked Mountain, and this is Super Dog. Here we are on the top of the mountain, and I did a painting sort of I made up in my head of Walter and Andy. And this is up on Peaked Mountain, and that's why I showed a couple of pictures of the dog, and I knew you'd all go, "Oh." So anyway, and now we move on to the Pretzel Vendor from New York City. His name is John Papadopoulos. I was walking by him with my brother. We went 2 blocks, and I said, "Dave, we got to go back. I got to talk to this guy." He didn't speak any English. I talked to the man next to him. I said, "How much does he make in a day? I'll pay him a day's pay for 20 minutes. I just want to have him." And he was very smiley, very nice, very warm-looking guy. There's pretzels down there. That's, a really, really cool guy. And we commuted that way, and I said, "I'll be back." And in 2 weeks, I came back. I was in a taxi cab. I had $100 in cash in my pocket I was going to give him. And I got out of the cab, I got my camera, and he just looks at me, $50. So that's what he wanted. And he knew that in English, I guess. And I did this painting, and it's one of the most popular paintings I've ever painted. It's in the collection of Marshall Fields V. And if a lot of the young maybe had never heard of Marshall Fields in Chicago. But anyway, this was a very popular painting. Could have sold it 50 times. And where are we next? Clesson Pease, a farmer from Summers. He said, "I'll pose for you under one condition: if you take a picture of me with my car." He went in the barn, backed up, and I couldn't even see him. He was the window, got out of the car. He's almost shorter than his car. Strong, strong, strong man. The hands, unbelievable. Unbelievable. He's just, and he's probably like this. And he just was amazing. And this wagon, I'll go get the wagon. This is a huge wagon, and he almost lost it once. I don't think I could take it out of the barn alone. He was 96, right there. And he had a sister, Eunice, who I remember she was standing at the screen door. The screen's here, and she's looking at me, and she has this long, straight hair, and she's maybe 60 years old or something, maybe older. I was a pretty woman once in my day. I said, "I'll take your picture, too." Anyway, here's the painting of him. And this is out in Somers, Connecticut. And he's standing out in a field. His house is behind him right here. And this field right now is all woods, trees, thick trees. That's it. This was 30 years ago. And this, I also did this. There's some character there, too. Interesting man, very interesting man. And the last time I saw him, he came to the screen door. He was 98. And he said, I went to the doctors. He said, I won't live. And I said, oh, we're all not going to live eventually. But anyway, a very nice man, and I enjoyed. Now, here we go. Here is the painting. This is a new painting. Now, I wanted to show this because I also paint young people. And this painting is of a young high school boy that dated one of my daughters. And he was a real nice, good guy, rich. And this is in the collection of the college in Carol's office. And I mentioned Crosby Kemper before, from Kansas City, Missouri banks, 90 banks from Denver to Chicago. There he is at 6'9", and his wife is very short. He hired me to do his portrait too, and I do these commissions that I really don't like to do, but he owns 35 of my paintings, and so you say yes, and he's been very instrumental in my career. He put up a lot of money for the Oil and Water Show in the year 2000. He actually said when he heard about it, it was going to be in Springfield, he said he wants it to go out to Kansas City, and it traveled out there, and he paid for the whole thing. So almost $100,000 he put up for the show. We had other donors too, but it very into art, very much into art. I also did the portrait of Tom Wheeler, who I mentioned earlier, and that was kind of fun. This is a portrait of my brother, older brother. It's called Mom's Favorite because I have a twin, an older brother, and whenever any one of us complained about the other, Dave's hitting me, and she would say, and I say, how does he get away with that? And she would say, because he's my favorite. And, she said it to Dave about me, and so, but this is, there's a lot of deeper meaning going into this that we won't go into because it will take too long, but it's one of my favorite portraits. And this is one of the board members, Jane Rulier, but maybe somebody of you out there know her. This is another commission that I did, and this is a recent one. And she had a kind of a look about her that I really liked. She's a good friend. And this is a very famous producer, Stanley Jaffe. He produced Fatal Attraction, Ghost, a lot of those. Recently, the things that weren't really that big a hit. But he was a big art collector and had me paint his daughter on this $1 million horse. And it's just something different that I did. And I was standing in a small study with him and her, and right on the bookshelf is a picture of him receiving an Oscar, and then there was an Oscar right next to it. And my painting was right here, and Katie it's a small room, and I saw her, and I'm doing this, pretty cool, huh? And she's a big smile, and she said, yeah. It was, it's kind of, this is a picture. She's here tonight. The aforementioned Joanna, my daughter, my middle daughter, and she just had a look about her. No, but anyway, I took pictures of her when she was 11, and I did a painting of her, which this is, if anybody wants to ask, what's your favorite painting? There's a lot of paintings that I love, but this one will always be my favorite painting, even though her sister is my favorite daughter. Just kidding. It's a good thing she's not here. So anyway, here she is, my other daughter. And this is a portrait that I did of Jen. And that's in the collection of Van Leer Black, who is the former president of Enterprise Leasing out in St. Louis. And Jack Taylor, who's worth $7.7 billion, he also owns a couple of my works. anyway, I just sold one to them. I was giving them a deal, and they said, no, we don't want the deal. We're paying full price. We don't want to take any money out of your pocket, Doug. Anyway, these are the people that I'm going to paint in the future. These are my grandchildren. And this is out in Nantucket, and this is not enough. I got to give you a closer look. Okay? And I will be painting them, and these are just unbelievable. And my daughters and these 4 kids are what really keep me inspired and going along. And I think that's a wrap. Thank you very much for coming. How do we do? Is that too quick? I wanted to, yeah. Yes, if you would like to ask any questions, we can bring up the lights. And if anybody has any questions.
Microphones on either side. I'll put on the lights. You can ask.
I mean, I went kind of quick. Maybe you don't remember anything I said. But well, anyway, if you don't have any questions, I'll be happy to sign. Is somebody? Yes, sir. In the back. You look familiar to me. Rich. Oh, Michael. Sorry.
Patronage from obviously very successful people. I'm wondering, what is your hope, in regards to the long-term situation for your work? Is it to stay with these people and families that have been so supportive of you, or ultimately is to see it more available to the public? How do you?
Well, ironically, most of the people that I mentioned tonight aren't even collecting anymore. I mean, I have new clients that are. I forgot to mention Lou Gerstner, who is was the president of IBM. He was a former president of the American Express, and I'm getting new clients all the time. A painting of mine, a red barn in the snow from Vermont, sold to somebody, and it went to Australia. Wow. To Terence Peabody, who's the 14th richest man in Australia and New Zealand combined. And this is beyond me that a barn goes to Australia. But there's always new clients, and there's a lot of new people, and I hope to just keep getting into more different collections in museums and keep painting.
That's wonderful. And there's I'm in Elliott 201, and there's some room on my wall.
We'll see what we can do for you. Yes, sir. Stu, how are you?
I venture to say that nobody in this room paid less than my wife and I paid for.
How much did you pay? We have collectors here that bought a painting in 1912.
That had to be, let's see, 40 years of age now.
20 years of age.
And
That was 1980. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it was probably $60 or $50 for the. What a deal.
I saw paintings in Nantucket going for $40,000.
Well, I'll tell you, and I'm not one to brag.
I saw them in the gallery in Nantucket, some for 20, 25, 40. I thought, oh my God, and you paid $50. So hold on to that to get it well insured.
Lou Gerstner. Lou Gerstner from IBM paid $55,000. That's the most that I've gotten. And I'm a bargain still. I mean, there are contemporary artists out there that are getting crazy money. Yes, sir.
Doug, question on, you paint the people and the emotion and the feeling and the depth of the people, but can you sit down with a painting, or did you start sitting down with a painting and work it through to the end, or do you stop, restart, rework it, and then finally get one that you can continue to the end, or does it go from beginning to end?
They're all different. Sometimes I can do a painting, a study in a day. It's unbelievable. And then there are paintings I work on and I don't like. I put it aside and I start work on it again in a month. I had a painting in a drawer for 3 years, and my mother was going through I have like what I call a bomb drawer, the ones that don't work out. And she's going through and she said, "What's wrong with this?" And I said, "Well, I'll put it out on the floor." And I looked at it for a few days and I added a flag or something. It was a lighthouse. Sent it down to Nantucket and sold the first weekend for $25,000 to William Crawley, I think his name was, Hanes Underwear, the president of Hanes Underwear. And so it was just lying there for 3 years. So it's all different. Some of them I struggle with, some I don't. They go very smoothly. So they're all different. I don't know if I answered you there.
Yep.
Yes, Nancy.
I'm so much more familiar with your lighthouses and I've never seen all these body of lights. You started out doing more on the scenics and then got into the portraits?
Well, I've been painting the portraits for a long time. It's just that they don't have as wide of an appeal. The lighthouses that I painted, they published them in prints. And the first print that came out, they said, "Doug, we want to have more because this one looks like a hit." I said, "What do you mean a hit? We sold 300 last month, and if they sell 1,000 a month, we figure it's a hit." They got to a point where they were selling 2,000 of them a month around the world. I signed prints in New York City for about 5 or 6 years, and people would come up from Hong Kong, New Zealand, South Africa, Hong Kong with an interpreter. "Oh, Doug Brega." They knew me. I really? Get your picture taken with Doug Brega. Sign the prints. It's unbelievable. It blows my mind that they can get around the world like that. But lighthouses have a wide appeal. They could be anywhere. So, did I answer a question or did I just blab?
Pretty much what I was going to ask you. Any special story behind Fairies Watch? One of my favorites.
Well, Ferry Watch is at Woods Hole. And you take the ferry over to Martha's Vineyard. I lived on Martha's Vineyard for a year when I first started. The sponsors had me go out there for the $150 a week. And you see it every time you go there. So I was watching the ferry. That's about it for that. Who had the... Yes? What's your name? Sarah. Sarah, thank you very much for coming all the way from New Jersey. Oh, aren't you nice? Up Stafford Road, which is a painting of this profile of a house and all the trees. Well, it's an old farmhouse in Somers, Connecticut, and this is right at dusk when the sun is behind the trees, making the trees black almost, and it darkens the White House, and then there's a little light on in the house, and it makes for, I mean, it's just like a lovely scene, I guess. I don't know the people in it. I'm just driving by, and ooh, geez, look at that. I've run off the road a lot of times. And I've run off the road sometimes when I was looking for things to paint.
Yeah.
Yes,
I was wondering if you were getting a lot of your patrons through the gallery or whether you have a rep, or, to have all these people find out about you and see your work in the first place. You're probably too busy painting to actually go around and say, hey, you're not going to...
No, it's the gallery. The New York show in 1987 was a huge catapult up to a new level. $1,000 a painting to $10,000 a painting, unbelievable. Madison Avenue, national advertising around the world in these national $8 magazines. Wow. And they have a collection of unbelievable collectors. Got to have this guy, got to have this guy. And, they got to, have to be sort of good for them to want it, you know. So, yeah, it was always a gallery, but then I did sell some on my own to clients, and I do sell some out of my studio once in a while. Bob, right? Shh, don't tell anybody. Yes, or somebody else over here. Yes. Joanna. Is that Joanna?
I'm interested in what makes Joanna your favorite. Could you elaborate, please?
What's that? Elaborate?
Could you elaborate? No, I gotta go. Yeah, I got
okay.
presentations still to
Okay,
do.
go ahead. But
Very good job.
Thank you.
I had a quick question for Joanna.
Joanna.
I was working at Simsbury High School, and the 10th grade English anthology had your picture on the cover. And I wondered how that felt, if you've seen it. I mean, it was all over the school. I'd see it on desks, and I said, that's Doug Brega's picture.
I used to teach in a high school. I used to teach at Minnesota Regional High School.
Right.
And one of the anthologies had my sister's picture.
Well, maybe that was it. Yes.
But you were in one of them, too.
I was in one of them.
Yeah.
Yes.
I used to have that one with my sister in it in my classroom.
Yes.
But not one of these. I don't know if I've ever really seen it.
Yeah, it was right on the cover.
Really?
Yes. And of course, I knew who you were, and it was like, oh my goodness, yes. And I was going around showing everybody.
There was about 5 books that they published some of my work in, and they sent all the money to my brother by mistake. And but we worked that out. Yeah, that was nice to have that. Yes. Wow. Paintings and drawings, probably 1,000, you know. Yeah. I mean, I got a drawer full of drawings, a drawer full of bombs, and, you know, some that I've thrown away. So that maybe 800 to 1,000 or something. Yes, ma'am. Charlie Corcoran? Annie's father, Charlie. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That was in yeah. I knew his daughter, the tennis pro, Annie. Yes. Charles. Well, he died probably 20 years ago. He and his wife did. But Annie's still around. She's in Amherst. And, I still have this up. The talent, I don't know where the talent comes, but my brother and I think we got the interest and the drive from my mother, and then we got the support. No, she was sold real estate for 37 years, and I don't know what she was doing in that business. She's a very nice person. Did I offend anybody? No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, whoops. Yeah, I don't, we, like I said, 6 years old we started drawing, but we went through high school playing sports and social life, and then it was in college that I learned how to paint. And so, and I flunked the paintings. I asked the teacher, what am I doing wrong? And, at one time we were painting in black and white. And he said, you got to lighten that up a little bit. And I said, how do I do that? Can anybody figure out? You add white. You only had 2 colors. So, I learned everything in college. And grandfather was in a little bit of mechanical drawing. I have relatives up here, fans, who came in. Yes, Dick Martin, Richard Martin, which I'm named after. My middle name is Richard, And my email is Dr. Brega. And you know what that says? Dr. Brega. So, anyway, yes, again. I got enough things to paint for the rest of my life in another life. However, you do kind of burn out a little bit, and you're not interested in anything. There are times in my life where you go through ups and downs, and personally or something, and nothing looks good. You know, it's, you know, and some, if you go away, I go away, come back after a week, tell them I'm not here, if it's for me. And I come back and everything looks unbelievable. You just you got to get out. And I get out and I play an hour of golf in the summertime. Yeah, that's it. I can play 9 holes in an hour. So anyway. Yes, sir. Yes, Mr. Howarth.
Yeah, why don't you tell them about your early days?
I forgot about that. Yeah. That should have been in the... There's a gentleman out here in the audience that we are honored, no pun intended, to have in the audience. The Honorable Robert Howarth. Is that how you say your name? Anyway, you're retired though now, aren't you? Okay, well, when I was 6 years old and drawing, I also used to go across the street in somebody's yard and color in coloring books. And it was his yard with him and his sister. And that was really my start in art. And I owe him a huge debt of gratitude. And you know what?
Where's the check?
He brought me a present tonight, and it's a coloring book with a box of crayons. Is that great or what? Thank you, Bob, by the way. I'm sorry I forgot that. Thanks for bringing that up. I did. Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. Wow. Wow. Well, thank you. Aren't you nice to bring that up? And thank you for coming. That's nice of you to come out here. Where are you from? Oh, in East Longmeadow. Okay. What's your first name? Merle Safford. You worked with my mother or in real estate. Well, how the heck are you? I haven't seen you in 100 years. I didn't know it was you. Well, good for you. Good for you. Wow. Unbelievable. Yes?
Hi, Doug. First of all, I wanted to share this with everyone. When I was in banking 8 years ago, I had an opportunity to enjoy most of his work, actually. I came to work every day, and I personally picked each one of his work to be displayed in the bank out in Connecticut. So Emerson, Johanna was one of them, the tomato lady, and one in my office was the meeting house, and that was very, very nice as well. So now I'm in home health care, so I'm still working. Hopefully someday I can get one of your original work. So if any of your clients right now needs home care services, have them call me.
Just a little plug there. Nothing wrong with that. Okay, who else? Anybody else? I mean, okay, well, I'll be happy to sign things for you. And thanks again for coming. It was a lot of fun, I hope. Wait a minute.
I'd like to formally thank you with one of our wonderful Bay Path College fleeces for coming this evening.
I will be privileged to wear it. Isn't that nice? Wow. Thank you. Aren't you nice?